Welcome to the Healthy Christian Leader. I'm Dwight Habermehl. Come join me in the living room for some honest conversations. I'll be talking to guests about their journey with Christ through the joys, the challenges, and the messiness of leadership. There's always something to learn from someone's story, so let's get started. Well, hello, friends, and welcome to the Healthy Christian Leader. I'm Dwight Habermehl, and I have our guest, Sweis Ubels, here today from Middleton, Nova Scotia. And Sweis is a very special guy in the network. You've been part of the Aaron Ministry Network with the Well for how many years now?
Yeah, it's 14 years, Dwight.
14 years. Yeah. That's incredible.
Month number one that I was in the Valley, I hooked up with Danny Smith, our friend, and he invited me to come along, and I've been part of the network ever since.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And how have you benefited from the Well down there in the Valley?
Oh my goodness, just getting to know other church leaders, mutual encouragement, just relationships, getting a good grasp of dynamics within the Valley. It's just been an enriching experience. Yeah.
And you actually now lead the Well and have probably for the past 8 years, maybe?
I have no idea how long it's been, probably something like
8
that.
8 or 10 anyway.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be talking about leading compassionate discipleship in a diverse church setting. And tell me what that means. You know, what does it mean to lead compassionate discipleship?
Well, it's okay, so maybe a little context will help. The church I led in Alberta was very rural. In fact, it was 11, 12 kilometers out of town, down this Poker Strait highway, and you needed wheels in order to get there.
Poker Strait.
Everything is straight
in the
there.
prairies.
Yeah, north, south, east, west. But the point being, you needed a vehicle to get to church.
Yeah.
Didn't matter where you lived, you needed a vehicle. Now I'm pastoring in Middleton, and the church is right in the middle of town. And Middleton, we love living in Middleton. We love living in the Annapolis Valley. There's lots of really great things happening, but socially too, there is some real challenges in that part of the world. And things like drug abuse. Middleton has all kinds of services available, which of course draw some of the people that need those services. And long story short, when I showed up at Emmanuel Church 14 years ago, I realized that this is not that church that I came from. This church has some very unique needs of the people that make up this church. And now it's a church that's made up of all kinds of different people, all different backgrounds. And there's people who are quite wealthy, but there's also people who have absolutely nothing. There's people who are extremely wise and smart, and there are people who are just facing some intellectual challenges and having different abilities in that. Mental health issues, the list goes on and on. So basically, you know, as a pastor, after a church service, when visitors have been there, they will often come up to the pastor and go, "Oh, great service, and we really appreciated your message, and what a wonderful church." And I've come to the place where I will just warn people right off the bat. It's like, I'm so glad you really enjoyed your time with us today. Just know that Emmanuel Church is a messy church. It's just messy. We love the diversity, but it can get messy. Yeah.
Now, what would mess look like to you?
Well, there are not very many services at Emmanuel Church where somebody's cell phone doesn't go off. And then even though we have the screen up, it's like, please turn off your phone kind of thing. And then at times people will just actually answer the call in the middle of service. Now, this is not a big church. You've been there. I mean, if we get 80 people on a Sunday, that's a good crowd. So everybody gets to hear that somebody's on their phone, that kind of thing. People coming and going. It's just not your traditional churchy feel. Christmas Eve has got to be the rowdiest service of the year for us.
What does that look like?
Well, it's just all kinds of people that seldom go to church, and they have but they're visiting grandma kind of thing, and they don't know the social norms of church, if you will. So we're out west. A lot of guys would still wear a suit and a tie.
Sounds an awful like a place that Jesus would show up at.
Well, that's been the encouraging part, Dwight. I think Jesus would actually really like our times together. Yeah, but it's not a suit and a tie thing. It's like, what's the dress code? It's like, oh.
So in that unique kind of cross culture, because it really is a cross culture of people from all kinds of different walks of life, which I think really beautifully displays the kingdom of God. You're called to lead discipleship. And so what does that look like?
Well, to be very honest, Dwight, it's the discipleship in that context. It's really easy to start thinking, well, those people, how do we disciple them? You
Right.
know, but it's how do we disciple us? Because the reality of this situation is, I call it messy church, but it's not because those people are messy, because those people may reveal the mess in ourselves as well.
Right.
I'll be honest, when I first came, it took a little getting used to, and so I would show up a good hour before the service would start, often be the first one there, other than some of the people with some of these challenges that were looking forward to coming to church, because it's the one thing every week that's set for them, and it's their community. And so they'd be waiting at the front door when I got there. And they were so happy to see me. They really were. They were happy to see me, and they wanted to tell me about their week. And so here comes the pastor to church with 100 different things in his mind, got stuff to do. And you know me, I can be pretty driven. And there's these people that want a piece of me. And they all have their stories, and they're all talking at the same time. And I'm like, So in all fairness, what that revealed eventually is that I began to see them almost as an obstacle to me getting the work done. And what the Lord revealed to me is just a lack of love for the people he died for.
Yeah.
And that wasn't their fault. That's me. That's my mess.
Wow.
And so my mess may look very different and maybe hidden behind a suit and a tie. Not that I wear a suit and tie on Sundays, but you know what I'm saying? It's the messiness reveals the mess of all of us. Because somehow we do have to make this work. So then how do you begin to change that?
So how do you make that work when you've got such diversity? How have you done it?
Well, that's, as an example, specifically my lack of love for people who, in a sense, I started seeing as being in my way to get the things done.
So begin to see individuals.
Yeah, it's like I began
for
to
the
pray
value of who they are.
To love these people. Like, Lord, grant me love for people, because ultimately that's like...
And so has the church been able to engage across the culture in discipleship? Have you been able to get like connections between people who might be in a more professional role, for example, with individuals who may be even struggling with employment? Like, how have those connections gone?
Yeah, so we try to do it in different ways, and it's taken some time to develop this, and we continue to develop it. But so on a Sunday morning worship service, traditionally you may have had a children's story. Well, we totally got away from it till we recognized all of a sudden, it's like there are a whole group of people among us every Sunday morning who don't get to go to children's church, if you will, because they aged out a long time ago. And yet they're there, and so how do we do that? The sermon might be too much for them in a sense, so we brought back the children's feature to just, in a sense, do part of our service in a language and in a way that some of these folks can understand it and embrace it.
Boy, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So if there were any developmentally challenged individuals, they would be able to hear and understand because they were listening at a child's level.
Yeah.
And things were being presented to them at a level they could really grasp.
Correct, yes.
Oh, that's excellent.
Another example is in our small groups. We used a lot of the materials from Church Renewal. And there's one small group meeting now that has taken one of those modules and goes through that on Wednesday night in just a whole different format. Same material, but taking way longer to work it through. The participants don't all get a binder, but they do learn how to journal in their own way, at their own level. And one of our leaders has really sensed the call of God to lead that. And so we see some of our own people really stepping into this and recognizing the need and giving themselves to that.
Can you share any stories of seeing God at work in someone's life through these dynamics that you're talking about?
I remember one fella started showing up years ago now, and really clearly struggling to understand. And so I asked him after a few weeks, so why are you here? What makes you come back? And he said, something to do. It's like, fair enough. A month or so later, he comes up to me, he says, Sweis, I don't know what's happening, but when you were speaking, I started getting shivers up my spine.
Wow,
And another month later, Sweis, I don't know what's happening. When you were speaking, I started crying. Anyway, the next summer, he was baptized.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that
Still
amazing?
there, all these years later, faithfully there. Another fellow, just really practical, has a worker, can't necessarily hold down a regular job, but we found a place for him to volunteer running the dishwasher after services and for some special events, and he used that skill to actually land a job as a dishwasher in a restaurant.
They often talk about when you have a higher needs church or a higher needs community, that, there's the old 80-20 rule that, 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people. You've probably heard that expression before. Do you find that with the needs there that there's a level of burnout that happens, or is there a distribution of the carrying of needs that transpires? How have you kept the church healthy despite the fact that it has been a healthy, or a host rather, for more people with brokenness?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair question. I mean, I think every organization struggles with some of these challenges. Yeah, and it shows up with volunteerism, like who actually does the work. It shows up in how many people do we have available to take leadership positions. Like, you still need a certain amount of leadership, people in leadership to run the organization. It shows up in financial contributions. A lot of these people have very little money. Yeah, and there are effects in that. There is an other side to that. It's, as I thought about this too, I had asked myself, is this a direction I would have chosen if I were to plant a church or try to lead a church? Like some of the things we do actually continues to grow that segment of our church people, in a sense of in the winter months we have a free meal for those who are lonely, for those who are struggling with food insecurity, and it's a hot meal, simple meal, friendly people. That's kind of the catch, and so all these people come, and that brings more people to the church. So there's growth because of it, but it continues to grow, especially that dynamic,
right?
That part of the church family, if you will, and it does have effect.
Now, in Middleton, there has been an incredible interchurch community, which we've talked about.
Yeah.
A lot of that has fostered at the Well. How has collaboration with other churches helped in serving people with high needs?
Yeah, one of the things that really helps is that there's an open relationships between these pastors. And so if there are some real challenges that come along with this, and there are, I mean, there's a reason I call it messy church.
Yeah.
I don't have to process it just by myself. There's others I can reach out to. A lot of times they will know the people involved, and we're able to just really come up with a God-honoring way forward. So that really helps. I mean, even some of the resourcing of, well, financially maybe a little bit, but yeah, some of the needs that come along with the benevolence.
Yeah.
It's all part of this picture, right? And,
of connecting and working together as churches in a community to meet the needs. Because in reality, like, I know that there's been a lot of churches serving other churches back and forth. And I would imagine that would have a significant degree to lift the burden of carrying it all on your own and seeing it more as a team effort in a community, which it is an unbelievable community down there. Like, we shared in an earlier podcast, and if you haven't already heard it, you have to go back to it and listen. Sweis was diagnosed with cancer, and how many pastors gathered?
94. No, 94 people. 17 of them were pastors.
17 pastors, and many people from their congregations came to a night of prayer for you, which was totally amazing. You've got to hear the story. Yeah. But there's a lot of community collaboration, and these leaders are working in a community where there is a degree of higher needs. And what I've watched from a distance, Sweis, I mean, I'm up in here in Halifax. I'm an hour and a half from you, but feel like you're very much home for me. Yeah. But I see the leaders working together and carrying the burden together, and a team dynamic I would think, anyways, from here it would seem that if a leader in the community were carrying it on their own, it would be a lot harder than it is.
Yeah, that's the beauty of this thing is, I really think this. So Emmanuel Church, our church, can just embrace this reality of, well, this is what God has in mind for our church.
Yeah.
And we're just going to embrace it and run with it, trusting that some of the other needs will be looked after. Are we running a vacation Bible school at Emmanuel Church? No, we don't. Mm-hmm. Do we have to? No, because the Baptist Church already is doing a really good job with it. So,
you send your kids over there.
Yeah. So there's this, this trust among the churches there that we're not out to steal each other's sheep. That we're not out to outdo the next guy. We are trying to discern what it is that God's calling our individual churches to, and we're going to give that our very best. And I think most theology students would agree with that, hypothetically, but this is a pretty hard thing to do.
Yeah, in reality, that's
because,
right.
Like I said earlier, it's like, not sure I would have chosen this direction. It's not exactly the church growth model, if you will, but it's something that I truly think we caught in as God's vision for this church, and it was before my days, to be honest. I just inherited and continued to run with it, but that was recognized.
I remember Bill McDougall,
absolutely,
when one day coming to your church when my children were small. And he was pastoring, so it would have been 20-some years ago. And my son, they wanted a testimony time, and my son stood up and said, "I caught a fish this morning." And the whole place erupted. And
that's the kind of church it's been all along. 30-some years now.
Anyways, pretty amazing.
Messy church. It's all good.
So how do you stay encouraged in that environment? Because I bet there are days when you feel very drawn upon.
Yeah, so like I said, you show up at church and you have, well, I have my plans, and then there's some other people that interfere with my plans, right? So how do you do that? I think you just have to really be willing to look in the mirror and say, okay, what are the challenges here? What part of that challenge is my own? Like in the end, I think that the call is a call to renewal personally as a leader. The call of renewal rests on the church itself, on the individuals that make up the church. You introduced this thing, how I've been involved with the well. That's been a key component of finding a space for that reflection. And church renewal itself, that organization has been really helpful in that as well over these last 8-9 years that I've been involved with that. Connecting with other leaders gives me life. And finally, having embraced this of, no, this is God's call on us. If you can get to a place where you can fully embrace that, it becomes a lot of fun.
Well, and it's got to be really come down to, there's got to be an element of surrender in here where you say, Lord, okay, you placed me here. This doesn't necessarily fit the paradigm that I had initially.
Or many Christians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm going to walk this by faith.
Yeah.
And step back from the drivenness into a position of faithfulness and live out the call as faithful as you can be. And, I think there's so much in the kingdom of God that is about faithfulness. We so often make it about performance. I often think of Ezekiel. And if I'd been given a task like Ezekiel and, God says to him, I want you to lay outside the gates of Israel and, lay on your side, and I want you to cook your food on dung. And Ezekiel cries out in panic, what? No way,
if you can
Lord.
do that, I can do this. Hey, Dwight, I just, earlier this year, I did a wedding for a couple who clearly have some intellectual challenges. And they've been talking about this wedding for over a year. And when I first heard it, it's like, how do you approach that? And anyway, and then there's the whole financial ramifications. Weddings are expensive, and they didn't have it. So we kind of laid out, well, this is what's needed. And so they show up with their wedding license, and the church threw the wedding on a Wednesday night. Over 100 people showed up for this wedding, and there was a reception afterwards. It was just so real and so authentic. And Carolyn and I, my wife and I, we came home and we sat back and reflected on that event that night. And our King's Kitchen crew, this group of volunteers that puts on the meal, they put on the reception. Like, this was a sacrificial thing on many people's behalf. But we said, man, this is the kind of party Jesus would have been at.
Yeah.
And it just becomes so fulfilling and life-giving to the church as a whole, but to me as a leader as well. So yeah.
No, it's an amazing thing. Jesus says, as you do unto the least of these, you do unto me.
Yeah.
And we can get very lost in the idea of building a church. And I'm of the belief, Jesus didn't say to go build the church. He said, I will build the church, and the gates of hell will not prevail. Yeah. What he said to us is, you go make disciples.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he said, of all nations.
Yeah.
and people groups. And I see you guys doing that down there, and it's such a blessing. I see you having stayed encouraged over a lot of years now, and good fruit being born in that community, like amazing fruit. I'm sure that, you'd probably love to go a lot faster than certain things, but you have gone far. And the lives of people have been tremendously changed. And I see God's kingdom being lived out and at work in the life of that church and the life of the community. And I'm very encouraged from what I see. Yeah. And I am sure, Sweis, there are many leaders who find themselves that are listening to us today in similar churches where they said, well, if I could only do this or do that or do the other thing, I could go so much faster. Yeah. But obedience, continually bringing Christ's love and his message and watching God move in the life of a community and being faithful with that charge is an amazing, amazing thing. Yeah. Thank you for all you do, Sweis. And it's been great to have you here on the show and as part of the conversation. And we'll see you next time on The Healthy Christian Leader. Well, thanks for joining this conversation. I trust that you were encouraged and challenged by the stories and experiences that were shared today. Would you join us next week? You can find new episodes weekly in video form on the Aaron Ministries YouTube page and in audio form wherever you get your podcasts. Aaron Ministries is an interdenominational network of friends in ministry with a mission to foster healthy Christian leadership. Check out our website, aaronministries.com, for more information and resources and on how you can donate to our ministry and potentially start a healthy Christian leader gathering in your area. Until we meet again, may you experience the Lord's blessing, grace, and peace. I'll see you next week.